So when I was first learning to play like EVH, I noticed he had this funny pick grip where he would use his middle finger predominantly. And it always looked kind of awkward and strange, and I figured, well, okay, he must do that purely so that he can tap easily with his index finger like. And so I never bothered to do it because I was happy just using a traditional pick grip and then tapping with my middle finger. But the more I've studied EVH, the more I've realized how important it is to actually hold the pick with your middle finger. There's actually some pretty substantial gains to be made by holding the pick in this position. Eddie had many areas of genius, whether it came to how he used his amplifiers or how he set up his guitars or how he used innovative techniques. But it turns out another area of genius was his pick grip. So let's dive in. So by holding the pick with the middle finger, it enables you to palm mute, especially on the higher strings, more easily. It makes playing riffs like this a lot more intuitive, especially as you want to leave that open A string droning out under the other notes. Now when using a traditional grip, the palm mute has to be a lot flatter, and you end up using a different part of your palm to mute the strings. And that's fine, but it leaves you with more of a diagonal kind of look. And you end up choking the higher strings. And in this case, it makes it sound like an old VHS tape. Now you can offset that by intentionally kind of pulling your hand out this way, but that is very unnatural. Now that's how players like me used to play this song. So I actually used this traditional pick grip for all my EVH stuff until early 2024. But then I decided to commit to it for 1 week, and after that I've never looked back. It's actually way easier to learn to pick this way than it might seem. Give it a week and see how you go with it. If you like playing Van Halen riffs and solos, the correct pick grip will make them sound and feel a lot more authentic. Now by using the middle finger pick grip when we play this one, it enables you to use more the side of your palm. And so you can kind of really place the blade of the palm on there. The hand can sit much more upright, whereas with this one it's much flatter. Now these snarling dog licks from Eruption, the hammer-on from Nowhere licks, they really depend on palm muting to pop. If you don't have that slight palm mute, then the hammer-on won't pop as loudly. And it also won't have that nice percussive factor. But notice I said slight palm mute. You don't want to smother these, you just want to be lightly touching the strings. Now doing this with a traditional pick grip is much more difficult because you end up squashing the notes too much. And finding that half palm mute takes a lot more finesse. You'll almost certainly find that once you've got the pick grip happening, that all of these other things will just happen naturally. That's the beauty of it. It's a bit like going and getting a license. It's a lot of work and hassle and effort, but once you have it, driving around is a lot easier than walking everywhere. It's a lot more convenient. This here is the driving test you need to pass. So this introduction riff from the song 5150 is another great example of why palm muting matters. Most guitarists, when they play this, either palm mute too much or they release the palm mute too much, like this. With a more Master of Puppets style on and off palm muting. So Eddie loved to just kind of sit in the middle and do his half palm mutes to really get those sweet sounds out of the guitar. And the pick grip is essential to that. It's almost impossible to do it with a conventional pick grip. By the way, all these amp tones I'm using in this lesson are amplitude presets. I'm plugged straight into my computer and then I'm just changing the tone as I go along. I have about 30 or 40 of these amplitude presets that I use when I cover Van Halen songs because I notice every single song has a slightly different setting. And you can get all these presets included with my Shred Like Ed course, but more about that later. So back when I used a traditional pick grip, I found it very difficult to nail that Panama pinch harmonic. But with the EVH grip, all of his pinch harmonics are suddenly a lot more intuitive. And the reason for that is when you do a traditional pick grip, your pick is further forward on the string and you tend to get a richer, fuller harmonic, more like a Zakk Wylde harmonic. But because of Ed's pick grip, he tended to hit harmonics much farther back towards the bridge, and he would get that more familiar EVH kind of ratty, squeaky harmonic that he was known for, where often you'd hear a blend of the fundamental and the pinch harmonic. So they tended to have that more ratty, stringy kind of attack to them. And if you're a details guy like me and you really try to nail the exact pinch harmonic the artist does when you're learning a cover, then with a traditional grip, you're gonna find that you have to really box yourself back towards the bridge to get those pinch harmonics right. Next up, we have tremolo picking. So this is one of those real signature Van Halen techniques that he was so darn good at. Now, while it definitely still is possible to tremolo pick using a traditional grip, I find it more intuitive to do with Eddie's pick grip. So when you're holding it with a traditional pick grip, the pick in relation to the wrist is in a different position than when you hold it with the middle finger grip. And I think that middle finger grip allows it to pivot more naturally. Now, the key to getting this tremolo picking happening is to, one, make sure you're really sticking that wrist out, because that allows the hand to have more leverage with that forearm movement. And secondly, you've got to keep relaxed. You can't tense up this hand. You don't want to go like that. It's not like you're trying to be effortful and accurate. It's more like you want to harness that natural butterfly movement. And you just want to let it happen and let it balance itself. Now for me, after a week of using this technique, I found that it just started slipping into my playing everywhere else. I feel like this grip is more solid and robust, and it's less likely that you're going to drop the pick, especially if you have that index finger just kind of sitting there alongside. It's not necessarily doing much, it's just kind of there resting. But the middle finger feels like it can grip the pick a bit better than the index finger. Strangely, I've also noticed my down picking has improved. I've always found down picking quite hard since I had a blood clot in my arm many years ago. But since using this pick grip, I feel like I've gained a few extra BPM. Now, there might actually be something to this, because it turns out the king of down picking, James Hetfield, uses a very similar pick grip. And so he's just got these two fingers on the pick, holding it like that, which he uses to very good effect in all those Metallica songs with that rapid down picking. Now, I've also found this grip quite useful in my cover band gigs. So any of you out there who also gig know that 95% of the time you're playing rhythm guitar. And so for things where you're, say, playing chords and they might sound a bit harsh, or you're playing like a funk part, having that slight palm mute can just dampen the tone ever so slightly and help take the edge off any of those abrasive edges. Maybe it's earlier in the gig and the crowd is still kind of warming up and you don't want to unleash the fury just yet. Even during acoustic sets, sometimes I'm playing along and my acoustic starts feeding back, and just by adding this subtle little palm mute, I'm able to eliminate the feedback, but I'm still able to strum. And so I historically associated palm muting as being mutually exclusive with strumming. You can't really do both. But this pick grip allows you to. And especially when things are going pear-shaped and you're trying to fix feedback in your monitor, the last thing you want is to drop your pick. So it's nice to have that extra layer of grip as well. It's funny though, this technique is not one that I ever intended to use outside of playing EVH songs. But just like economy picking, it just kind of found its way into my technique, and I discovered myself wanting to use it by default. And that to me is a real green light for a technique. It says this technique is intuitive as long as you give it time to blossom. Some techniques aren't, and no matter how much you try, they're just awkward. But this is not one of those. Give it a week and see how you go. And if you like playing your Van Halen songs, then this might be a real game changer for you. Now, while Eddie did use this technique to great effect, it didn't mean he always used it exclusively. Sometimes he would go back to a more traditional grip, especially if he was using the whammy bar. So Dreams is a great example of that. If you look at live clips, you'll notice that he's just using a traditional pick grip so that he can grip the whammy bar with 3 fingers, because doing this is a non-starter, especially if you have your whammy bar decked, meaning that you're going to need to put a bit more pressure on it to get it to do anything than if it was floating. Now, another great example of not using the middle finger pick grip is little guitars. So in this one, Eddie uses his pick in a more traditional sense, and he actually uses the index and middle to pluck the strings, which I thought was illegal. You're not allowed to use the pick finger that you're holding the pick with to also pluck the strings, but that's exactly what he does. So I actually used to play this with my two middle fingers. And that's fine, but it's actually quite awkward and slow. And a member of the Van Halen community reached out and said, hey man, you're playing it wrong. You need to use your index and middle finger and hold the pick like so and just sneak in the index and middle. And so this allows you to do the big strums, and then you just use the two fingers to pluck. Let me know in the comments below if you would like me to create a lesson on how to play little guitars. I love this song. And this is my very own little guitar that I bought purely to play one song. It's an Epiphone Power Players Les Paul that I just kitted out with the EVH stripes. And it actually plays really well. I highly recommend. Now, learning to play like Eddie Van Halen is quite difficult because the tabs tend to be overwhelming and they have so much information in them, and a lot of them are actually wrong information. That's why I created my Shred Like Ed course, because I wanted to break down the patterns and concepts he used when he plays these solos and riffs. Once you understand the thought process behind this, going out and learning the actual songs is a piece of cake. You'll also get all the amplitude presets I use in this video, plus many, many more. I'm always adding to and updating them depending on what songs I'm covering. You can save on Shred Like Ed by bundling it with Swedish Shred Secrets and Effortless Shred. Check it out in the description below. Also, let me know if there's anything specific you would like me to make videos on in the future. Let me know if you want a song tutorial or a technique breakdown, anything you like. All right, Shredders, thanks for watching. Do me a favor and check out one of these other videos.